when it comes to China, you did mention off camera a lot of excess capacity. So what's going on there in terms of amid this ongoing trade war at the moment? What are your readings?
China has done a wonderful job in building leadership in many strategic industries. For example, solar panels, electric vehicles, batteries, and so on. However, the competition has been brutal. There's been significant capacity added, perhaps in excess of demand. And so there is excess capacity in the industry, and sooner or later, perhaps later, given the current environment, we're likely to see eventual consolidation of these different markets.
So consolidation of these markets, are you talking about EVs and solars, or is there anything that I'm missing right now?
It's primarily EVs and solars, but there are also some other industrial businesses where this is the phenomenon that is taking place.
And hasn't it been what sort of the playbook that China has with a lot of strategic industries that let them go sort of wild with innovation and production, and then at some point there are so many players that the profits are coming down, prices are coming down, and there is a major consolidation? Do you think we're just sort of seeing yet another cycle of that?
I do think, having heard Premier Lee's speech this morning, that there is a real focus on moving China from a primarily supply-driven model to a much more balanced economic model, and to really spur domestic consumption. So that is indeed very good news for the market.
What are you seeing in terms of your clients?
Yeah.
Are they delaying critical decisions right now, or are they moving even faster because of these geopolitical considerations that they're making right now?
The most dynamic companies are taking a positive and proactive approach, both towards the short term and the long term. In the short term, they're focused on using AI to take out costs, to dramatically improve customer experience, and to try and launch new business models. So that's something we're seeing a lot of. Equally, taking a longer term view, they're stepping back. They're focused on three things. They're focused on prediction, identifying the 3 or 4 critical trends in their industry, and how they can get conviction around those trends and how they can capitalize on those trends. The second is adaptability. They're realizing that it's a much more uncertain environment. They therefore need to have to be adaptable, an agile organization, a willingness to experiment with new business models, etc. And finally, resilience. It's a far more uncertain environment, so they should be able to withstand sudden shocks which are not expected, and they need the balance sheet flexibility, the strategic flexibility, and the operational flexibility.
How do you stay adaptable in this kind of environment, and what does that really mean in terms of a supply chain? Does it mean entering as many different markets as possible, just have smaller production capacity, not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow in the headlines?
In terms of supply chain, the first priority is to ensure that your markets are, or rather your supply chain is aligned to the markets you service. And to put all your eggs in one basket through a large global factory, for instance, is outdated. You need to ensure that you understand your customers of today, customers of the future, what are the likely tariff situations and the range of scenarios, and how do you ensure that your supply chain is configured to deal with all of this. So this does mean adding some costs, adding some capital expenditure, but it ensures that you're safe and your business continues to flourish even in very different scenarios.
So you were at Summer Davos in Dalian last year. What is really the biggest sort of takeaway? What is the biggest contrast that you can draw from last year and this year in terms of the level of risk that people are talking about, and in terms of uncertainty people are trying to digest at the moment?
It's very clear that the level of risk and level of uncertainty has gone up. Liberation Day tariffs resulted in a fair degree of confusion. However, Asia has been very resilient, and what comes through is the optimism of commentators in Tianjin at the WEF here, that we can indeed cope with these crises. We've handled the Asian financial crisis, SARS, the global financial crisis, and more recently COVID. And through all of this, Asia has thrived. So there's confidence that the region will adapt, change their business models, have more regional cooperation and regional trade, and eventually prevail.